Hi everyone, Sarah here from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. We are doing our little stitch sampler project and I've got another stitch for you today. So today we are going to look at granitos. So if I tell you that granitos in Spanish is pimple, that'll give you an idea of what this stitch looks like. So I'm going to do it on this frame first. I've got one in a stretch bar frame that I'm working on and my little handheld one, and I will do it on both for you. So I'm going to demonstrate that here so you can see what they look like. They're really lovely little stitch actually. See what they're called, little pimples. They're very textural, really nice sort of seeds, and you could do leaves with them. And I'm going to do it in a stranded cotton. So I've done a couple here in the perle thread and I sort of stopped off and I thought these aren't really working. Could have carried on a little bit, but these work better in a thread that actually will come apart. So the stranded threads or some stranded silks, anything that strands, because they'll help to lay a little bit better. So this is 6 strands that I've got in here and I haven't separated these out. I've just cut them from the skein and put them in the needle. So that's what that looks like. And if I separate them, pull them apart, I'll show you that in a second, then this is what the strands look like. I put them back together. So they've both got 6 strands in the needle, but you can see now what happens if I take them apart first and then put them back together. They're going to spread out a lot more than if I don't take them apart first. So that will have a different effect. So I'll do a couple next to each other so you can see. So they're dead easy to do. So I'm just going to take a little stitch there, pull it all the way through, and then come back up where you started. Come back through the same hole if you can. We're just going to keep putting stitches in those 2 holes. I'm going to go back down in that hole there, but what you'll notice is I'm just doing that needle at a slight angle. So I'm kind of guiding it down so that thread goes down the side there. They're still coming in and out of the same holes. I'm going to come up that way and going down that hole, but just angling that needle a little bit, and that will just help those threads to just spread out a little bit. And then you can keep going with this. You can put as many in as you like. So pimply, you want your pimples. I'm just going to go straight over the top with this one. If I just guide that down. And you can just see those strands start to separate a little bit now and to sit a little bit flatter. So I could go and put another one in over the top. So there's no right or wrong with how many of these stitches you put in with these. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then if I come in and put one in the one that I have taken apart. So all that you need to do with this, I've got my 6 strands. I'm going to separate them out at the end. And I'm just going to take one. I can separate it. And the easiest way to do this without it getting in a big knot is just to take one, pull it straight up. Take another one, pull it straight up. You can pull them apart that way and they'll untwiddle, but the potential for getting in a knot is large, whereas this way it'll never get in a knot this way. You can just pull them straight up. And I'm going to separate all 6 strands, then you have to put them all back together again. So I'm just going to take one at a time. If you're a needle pointer, you probably do this all the time. I think sometimes it's good to do this and sometimes you don't need to, so I think it's about choosing when it's right. But in needlepoint you do it because the threads separate and they cover the canvas a little bit better, so that's why it's done. And then you can see there that I've got all 6 strands, but they're just now apart, they're not all tight up to each other, and they will spread out a lot more. So that's how you separate it. Put it back in your needle. Let's put a couple in next to that so we've got a nice comparison there. This is a good use for a sampler, to try lots of different things on the same one, see what you like, see what works for you. Right, one of my strands has come out, so I'm just going to put those back together. This is the problem with taking them apart. You've got to make sure when you knot it that they all go back together, so I'm just going to try that again. So I hadn't got 2 of those in my little starting knot at the end, and when I pulled it through it came out, so it's a little bit harder to keep the tension and keep these all together. So just make sure that you do that. So I'm just going to put 2 little stitches in. That will just start that thread off. And I'm going to stitch over the top of those, and that will cover them up. Then I can cut my knot off. Nice way to start your thread. So let's try that again. So same as we did before, but hopefully now the thread should spread out a little bit more evenly. If you want to guide it down as you go, you can. You can use a big thick tapestry needle, or if you've got a laying tool like I have, that works nicely. So down through the same hole. And you can see now, look, I can spread those stitches out and they'll start to cover that. So you may not need so many stitches in there. So back up where I started, this is the 3rd one. It's going to come in at an angle, the side, going back down the same hole. That covers really nicely. So it is worth stranding your cottons before you do this to get really nice ones. It does take a bit longer to do that, but just make sure that you pull them down at the same tension. Once you've separated them, that's a little bit harder, but just fiddle with it as you go. And then I'm going to put 1 more in over the top. Down the same hole. You can hear that needle as it's pulling through. It's quite a lot going through that hole now, but that'll be fine. I'm going to leave it like that. So definitely worth doing that with your thread. So let's have a go on the other sampler. So if you're working the little slow stitch sampler and you're just doing it in your hand and not in the frame, let's do a couple on there. So exactly the same as before. I've got my strands that I've separated first. Up and down the same hole, coming at a little bit of an angle from the side. That'll just help to spread them out a little bit more. I could put my nail on there, look, and just pull that down and it'll go to one side. And good for the tension because you're doing everything down the same hole. These can get very tight, so if you're doing the sampler in your hand, that will help just to loosen it off a bit. And then let's go 1 more over that. So this is 4, but there's no set number of times to go over it. Just keep going until you've got what you like. And I'll do the last one over the top. You just separate those threads out, pull them down nice and tight. And then if you want to, you can just run your needle on to separate those out and get that to sit really nice and securely. So as I said, nice little petals. If you wanted a little flower, they'd be nice in this. Little seed heads, just to add a little bit of texture to your work. You can make them as big as small as you like. There's a little tiny one there, look. Have a fun playing with the sizes of these. See how small you can make one. Come out really nicely. So definitely worth stranding the thread for that. And those are really nice, simple stitches. Do lots of texture. They look really beautiful, and those are Granitos. So if you've not seen this project yet, but you'd like to join in, you'd like to have fun learning some embroidery stitches and doing it on this little sampler project with me, you can check out this playlist up here. It's got all of the stitches that I have done so far and tells you how to get going on it. And if you're at the other end of the journey and you finished a little sample and you want to know how to finish it off and you want to see some other pieces for some ideas and some inspiration, you can check out this video down here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.